They're here.
So yeah, at first, I just didn't know what to do.
At first, Daddy was confused.
I didn't know it was going to affect people in Nassau and Freeport.
And then I told him it was just the first 3 numbers.
Our new phone numbers have arrived, but there is no need to be afraid. Only the first 3 numbers have changed. The new numbers are in effect now.
Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into MB12, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight in news, a man is shot dead outside a Yamacraw beach home. Hearings continue in the Stephen Stubbs sentencing matter. The countdown to the holidays is on. How you can make your holiday meal special this year. Plus, why the AIDS Foundation wants you to believe in zero. We've got those stories and so much more coming up. I'm Paige McCartney, and MB12 starts right now. Welcome once again to MB12. Violence rocked the normally quiet Carter Close last night, leaving residents in shock. Neighbors recall hearing a single gunshot being fired outside this green and white house, which many of them identified as the Clark's residence at around 10:30 p.m. Acting officer in charge of the Central Detective Unit, Superintendent Melvin Lundy, says officers raced to the scene off Yamacraw Beach Estates after getting the anonymous call. However, the victim was pronounced dead. He had a gunshot wound to the head.
A black male was seen lying to the front of the yard. He was clad in a navy blue trousers and a white shirt. He had a apparent gunshot wound to the upper body. ESM responded. He was pronounced dead on the scene. Right now, the investigation is in its early stage.
Lundy could not say if the young victim was known to police and could not comment on a motive at this time. One concerned resident who withheld her identity out of fear of being targeted says the incident has left residents shaken.
The corner was filled with cars. I couldn't get to my yard. Everybody was gathered here and I didn't know what was going on, but I was later informed that somebody was shot, which is very shocking to me. It's very scary because this corner, it doesn't even have noise. Everything's peaceful. It's just scary that it's so close to home. I literally live right here.
This latest killing brings this year's murder count to 89, though a handful of murders has been recorded since a new crime plan was unveiled last month. Superintendent Lundy said it's clear increased police presence on the streets has made a difference.
The police is extremely satisfied because if you notice, you'll see a lot of police officers' presence on the streets, and police presence do make a difference when we're talking about reducing crime. So we're going to keep our fingers on the pulse, and you'll continue to see a lot of police presence throughout the streets of New Providence.
And in other news, convicted cop killers Stephen Stubbs, Andrew Yogi Davis, and Clinton Russ Evans will have to wait a little longer before a Supreme Court justice hands down their sentences in the case of the 1999 nightclub shooting. This is the second time the men are facing the possibility of a death penalty. Christina McNeil was in court as the sentencing hearing got underway. Here's her report.
The validity of psychiatric evaluations of all 3 men called into question today as the attorneys representing them questioned the psychiatrists who prepared the reports. Of grave concern to all 3 attorneys was the near identical nature of the wording of the reports and just how long the psychiatrists actually spent with each of the men before preparing the reports.
Psychiatrist Dr. Sinavas Voda was asked by the court to prepare psychiatric reports for Stubbs, Davis, and Evans to determine if each man was fit for sentencing and whether or not each individual was capable of rehabilitation. It was during his overview of Stubbs' psychiatric report that Stubbs' attorney, Muriel Ducille, pointed to what he called the extremely cavalier manner in which Dr. Voda's reports were prepared. For instance, in the report of Andrew Davis, Dr. Voda referred to Mr. Stubbs when describing Davis' mental state. Ducille questioned how the two mental status evaluations could be the same. In response, Dr. Voda explained that an error was made, but in general, the scope of the report is very simple and similar language is used. Overall, Dr. Voda concluded that each convict was fit for sentencing. However, he was unable to determine if they were capable of rehabilitation, as neither of the men took responsibility or expressed remorse over the murder they were convicted of. To that, Ducille contended that innocent people are sometimes convicted and may therefore not feel remorseful about a crime they did not commit. Attorneys Ian Cargill, who represents Davis, and Ramona Farquharson, who represents Evans, also questioned just how long Dr. Voda actually spent with each convict before completing the mental status report. Both contended that the psychiatrist spent less than half an hour with their clients before completing his report. Earlier today, the court heard about the early childhood years of each of the men and how those early experiences may have influenced their behavior later in life. For example, Assistant Director of the Department of Rehabilitative Welfare Services, Betty Farquharson, who prepared the social inquiry reports, said that Stubbs' parents split when he was just 8 years old. She said it's possible that the absence of a father figure in the home contributed to his disruptive behavior and low grades during his school years. Similarly, the acting Deputy Director of Probation's Clinton Gray noted that Evan's father never played a prominent role in his life. Neither of the three men completed high school. All of these factors will be taken into consideration by Supreme Court Justice Roy Jones during the sentencing hearing. The matter will resume Wednesday morning at 11:30. Reporting for NB12, I'm Christina McNeil.
Well, more issues at the South Street Magistrates Court complex today as a busted sewage pipe delayed proceedings for hours. This as police brought to court 4 people suspected of running an alleged car theft ring on Exuma. 34-year-old Jamaican national Jason Noble, who lives on Exuma, 27-year-old David Pierre of Williamstown, Exuma, 28-year-old Shantia Sayers of Exuma, and 34-year-old Gino Gray, also of Exuma, appeared before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt in Court Number 9 today, charged with various offenses. Noble was charged with 3 counts of stealing various years and models of Honda vehicles and 8 counts of receiving various Hondas. Pierre was charged with 1 count of stealing a Honda and 3 counts of receiving stolen Hondas. Sayers was charged with 1 count of receiving a stolen Honda, and Gray was charged with 1 count of stealing a Honda and 1 count of receiving a stolen Honda. They all denied the charges brought against them. Sayers and Gray were each granted bail. Gray in the amount of $10,000 with 2 sureties, and Sayers was granted $7,500 bail. Ferguson Pratt will hear Noble and Pierre's bail applications on October 28th at 2 p.m. They were both remanded to Her Majesty's Prison. During the hearing, the stench of sewage filled the courtroom. Before the proceedings got underway, Ferguson Pratt described the smell as malodorous and apologized to members of the public. She also adjourned several matters because of the condition of the court and only dealt with urgent cases today. The new multi-million-dollar court complex has been plagued with issues since it opened in January of last year. Well, parents of A.F. Adderley Junior High School students were shocked to be called to pick up their kids early from school today after the campus was forced to shut its doors. This after the principal reported a diesel odor emanating from a nearby source. According to Education Director Lionel Sands, the school sent teachers and hundreds of students home at around 1 p.m. Sands said a support team from the Ministry of Education was sent to the school on Tonic Williams-Darling Highway and Blue Hill Road to assess the source and extent of the issue. He told NB12 the Ministry of Education made the decision to close the school as it did not want to take the chance and allow students to be in an environment that may not be good for them. Sands said the environmental assessment will guide the ministry's decision, but he said the school is expected to open tomorrow. When contacted today, Bahamas Union of Teachers President Belinda Wilson said the union will conduct its own assessment to determine if the school environment is fit for teachers to occupy. Well, shifting gears now, what do you get when you mix Southern Italian accents with Caribbean flavor? Delectable dishes at the Atlantis Resort's Casa D'Angelo. Chef Angelo Elias, award-winning Italian eatery, is one of the Paradise Island's finest. Our officials are mixing things up this year with a new chef and a new menu. Our Vonnie Toot swapped her microphone for some mozzarella and gave us this behind-the-scenes look.
I'm in the kitchen of Casa D'Angelo, where Tuscan entrees meet Southern Italian accents and some Caribbean flavor. I'm joined by Chef Iwan, and I have the happy task of testing out their new 1-month-old menu now. Chef, I can't cook to save my life, but what are you going to teach me how to cook today?
Well, today we're gonna do a braised short rib ragu, tossed with fresh pasta. It's a rosemary infused pasta. It's in the winter, it's a pretty popular dish. We have it here on our menu, and it's one of our best sellers.
The first step in making this culinary creation is rolling 4 beef short ribs in flour. Coat this hot skillet with extra virgin olive oil. I'm told it's the most important ingredient in an Italian kitchen. Next, Chef Iwan gently browns the short ribs. The flour creates a thin crust.
So we want these to be browned slightly.
Okay, now the beef short ribs are getting nice and brown and I'm getting hungry. So what happens next? What do we do next?
Well, they're nice and brown right now. We're gonna take these out of the pan for a few minutes and rest them back on this plate.
Okay, so this is the simple part here, putting it on the plate.
Right, but they're not done yet. We're halfway through. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna add our mirepoix, same pan.
Now throw in some whole garlic, a little more extra virgin oil, and of course, some fresh herbs. The smell is unbelievable.
This is all rough chopped, but it's all gonna be strained out of the gravy once the dish is prepared. And then,
I have no idea what that means, but it sounds good.
And then it's gonna be wonderful.
Okay. For you wine lovers, pour in the cheapest red wine you can find to deglaze the pan. Chef Iwan says it releases the caramelized vegetables and blends into the sauce to give it fantastic flavor. Then comes the veal stock and tomato paste. Add a little salt and pepper, but not too much, and then put in the short ribs.
And we just want to cover this up. This is going to go into the oven at about 400 degrees for up to 2 hours.
Then we wait. Before we know it, the short ribs are done. Now, the short ribs have been braising for 2 hours now. What happens next, Chef? It looks good, by the way.
Yeah. This is a total transformation of what we saw that went into the pot. This has actually been pulled just like you would do pulled pork. And these are the rest of the components that we will use to make the final dish.
This is where Chef Val, the sous chef, comes in. She heats the pulled beef in the skillet, adds juicy cherry tomatoes, more salt and pepper for taste, and braised sauce and white wine for a burst of flavor. Throw in the hot pappardelle pasta, some grated Parmesan arugula, and toss it up. Next, it's time to plate up.
Put a little arugula on top for garnish, and a sprinkle of Parmesan cheese. And there we have our finished product.
And what's the price of pappardelle perfection? $48. Now, here comes my favorite part.
Pappardelle con costantine. Buon appetit.
Tutto bene.